Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the We Believe to You Paranormal Podcast. I'm Eric,
And I'm Michelle.
and
And today, do I do
today,
it or do you?
and today we got the part 2 of our little deep dive series that we got going on here. I'm kind of excited to be talking about this again. I haven't. It's been a little bit since I've seen the movie, but I mean, it's been fairly recent, so I think I still have some of it in my head, and I'm.
I was gonna say you're gonna have to be like the go-to movie person because it's been probably years since the last time I saw it, so I really don't remember it probably as well as you do.
Oh, for sure. Like I'll. You got the legit part, and I'll get the
Yeah.
movie part.
Okay, sounds good.
I think I feel like that's how it was in the last deep dive as well.
Yes, yeah, it was. And we'll keep it that way. So then I won't watch oh wait.
No.
Well, technically I haven't watched the third part, really.
Well, I still feel like you should, just because I mean, because if we start talking about it, then I'm basically spoiling the movie for you.
I mean, I think it's fine. If it's not as scary as like the first and second, then I mean, am I really going to be surprised?
No, I guess not. But to be fair, no, not to be fair. I actually don't think it's on HBO Max anymore though. So you might not be able to watch it anyway. You might have to get it on Amazon Prime or something.
Then I won't watch it. All right. So, in case you guys don't know, or if this is for whatever reason your very first podcast episode that you're listening to, we, like Eric said, we are covering the Conjuring movies. And so last month we did a deep dive on part 1, and this month we're going to be doing a deep dive on part 2. Not necessarily the movie itself, but what the movie is based on. And this month it's going to be on the Enfield Poltergeist. And if you've been listening to our episodes, then you know that I vaguely, kind of, sort of, quickly told a summary about this in our episode when we did a deep dive into Poltergeist. But now we're going to like really, really deep dive this story. So it's going to be fun. I'm excited about this one. This is probably one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah. And Michelle also, like, she talked to me about it one time. Again, very briefly, and like we didn't go into detail about it or anything like that. But I want to say, did you tell me that it was that the Conjuring 2 is based off of this movie, or based off of this?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. It is.
And I think so. Yeah, because then I told you I've never seen any of the Conjuring movies, and then
that's how it all started.
Yeah, and then she sent me this audio file, and I was just like, "Hail to the no." And I don't think
creepy, though.
Yeah, I know. I think I listened to some of it. I don't know if I listened to the whole thing, because I think it was a rest stop when I got the message, and so my wife was Valeria was in the bathroom, and I was outside walking Blake, and I was trying to listen to this thing at the same time, and then I saw her coming, so I shut it off, and I was like, and
no.
Partly because it was creepy, and partly because I saw her coming in, and I knew she wasn't want to hear that.
Well, I'm fairly certain that I may be able to add some of the audio to the podcast. So hopefully you'll be able to hear what I'm talking about, or what we're talking about, a little bit later in the episode.
And if not, I'll probably add the link to the YouTube video as well.
There's quite a few videos, or unless I can find one video that has all of the videos, then that'd be great too. But yeah, there might be multiple links, but it's fucking creepy, guys. It's not natural. But I mean, we'll get into it later in a little bit.
So let's do this, man.
Get started? Okay.
Yeah.
So Conjuring 2, the movie, is about Ed and Lorraine Warren being called out to this house. But fun fact, they don't really actually come out in like real life. Like they weren't heavily involved like at all whatsoever. I think they were out for a few days and that's about it. But we'll get more into that a little bit later. So spoiler alert for the real story.
Also, spoiler alert for the movie. If you haven't watched it, we're gonna talk about it. Not in depth, but we're a lot, and we're probably going to give a lot of the main plot points away. So if you haven't watched the movie, then I would say stop watching this or stop listening to this. Um, and if you haven't, then continue on, guys.
And I will say part 2 was probably my favorite just because I knew the story, but also I don't know. I liked that one over part 1 and I guess technically half of part 3 because that's all I've seen. But it was my favorite Conjuring movie
I
for
will
sure.
say that oh man, was it the scarier of the first two? I think it might. I think it might have been scarier than the first one.
I I think it was, but again,
And
I think it's because it was my favorite.
I think, yeah, I think I'm gonna have to say yes, just because again, the nun freaks me out, and she comes out quite a bit in that movie,
Yeah.
and her scenes are so just. And then even okay, just yes, it's. I think it's scary. I think it's scary. I think it is the scarier of the two.
Yeah. Okay. That I agree. Let's get started then. It all started when Peggy Hodgson moved into a quaint little home in Enfield, London in 1977 with her 4 children. Margaret, who was 12 or 13, I've seen some reports, but mostly it was usually said she was 12. Janet, who was 11. Johnny, who was 10, and Billy, who was 7. So they moved into this council house, which is basically like public housing. So if you're, lower income, this is kind of where you would live. Um, and she was a single mother, and she had just gone through this like divorce, and dad was kind of an asshole, and he would come and like drop off child support at the house and kind of rile everybody up and then leave and be an asshole. And sometimes he would even bring like the younger women that he was dating to the house when he would drop off the child support, like just to be an asshole. So fuck that guy.
What a prick.
Yeah. And I mean, as I'm sure many of you single mothers know, she had to work really long hours trying to take care of her family. So, I mean, obviously there's a lot of stress in the household, not to mention the 12 and 11-year-old daughters who are going through puberty. And I mean, we've talked about this before also, again, in that poltergeist the deep dive, that poltergeist activity kind of tends to stir up or rile up when there's young people going through puberty. It sounds weird saying it out loud, but it's just, I know that if you know the paranormal, you know that that's just a regular thing, but it's still weird to say it out loud for some reason. I think I just hate the word puberty.
like moist.
Like moist. Yeah, exactly.
I don't understand why
Just,
people that word bothers people.
I don't, yeah, moist doesn't bother me, but apparently puberty does. But I think it's because it's just like such an awful time in any person's life. Puberty kind of sucks, so it's got a negative connotation there. But yeah, so that's where we're at. Moved into this house in 1977, and shit hit the fan.
And I think
Garrett.
in the movie, I think it was about the same. I think it was basically the same. They lived in public housing. The mom had just gotten divorced. I know they like Elvis was a big thing too, because like I think the dad would like
Oh
play
yeah,
Elvis's
yeah.
songs or something like that.
No, it was Ed Warren.
Well, he oh no, he would play the records.
Yeah,
He would play the records. That's right.
because I remember being like, Elvis. I
Yeah,
remember.
yeah. So
Yeah,
Ed Warren in the
maybe that's
movie.
why I liked it more.
Yeah, Ed Warren plays the guitar in the movie. He plays an Elvis song, and then I think the dad would listen to Elvis records. So that was like
Mm.
Elvis was like a thing in the family. And but again, like they had just gotten to. I think they had just gotten divorced. The dad was kind of a deadbeat. I don't remember if he was paying child support or if like he started to, and I think he stopped or something like that. But he was just a piece of shit in the movie too. So, and he never
Yeah.
came out. So
So the very first like haunting event, I guess you can say that happened is kind of like disputed. Some say it's one, or it's been said that it's one thing, and others say that it's another. But I'm just going to tell you what those first two were. And does it really matter? Because they were both awful. But one of the firsts, I guess, was this one time where Peggy heard these loud noises coming from her daughter's room. And when she went up there to tell Margaret and Janet, like, you should be asleep, stop talking, stop messing around. What parent hasn't done this to their kid? But so instead of roughhousing or like talking or messing around like she expected to see her daughters doing, she actually found them huddled in a corner, like terrified and just freaked out. And so that's supposedly one of the very first experiences. But the first, possibly, or the possible other first experience, again, either way, both creepy. Doesn't matter which one was first. Peggy heard, again, loud noises from upstairs. So she went into her kid's bedroom, and this time it was, if I'm not mistaken, who's in this one? Janet and one of her brothers, if I'm not mistaken. But so she entered the bedroom and she saw the chest of drawers moving around. And so she tried to stop it because it was kind of, I mean, when shouldn't have been moving, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
And she tried to stop it from being moved as it was coming closer to the door. And she realized that something was pushing it from the other side.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't have been moving. It was some sort of invisible force, and it almost seemed like it was trying to trap them in the room because it was like, trying to push up against the door. And a quote from Janet, who was in the room when it happened. She said, "It started in the back of the room. The chest of drawers moved, and you could hear the shuffling." Thinking that it was Janet and her siblings making the noise, she said that her mom told them to, go to sleep. And and she says, when we told her what was going on and she came to see it for herself, she saw the chest of drawers moving. When she tried to push it back, she couldn't. And so yeah, any sort of like invisible force, like that's why I hated Paranormal Activity, because I'm like that, like you can't see what's opening the cabinets or what's pulling the sheets off. Like that movie scared me more than like
The
The Nun
Conjuring.
or The Conjuring. Yeah, like anything with like super creepy like faces and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know, because it's like, yeah, whatever, that's made up. But for me, Paranormal Activity is like some sort of invisible force, right? And so, like, I don't know, that's more terrifying
Or
to
when
me.
they
So
put like all the powder down in the hallway and stuff, and you just see the footprints.
yeah, like no, I don't know. So I would be scared shitless if this huge like chest was moving and I couldn't move it because something
Mm-hmm.
else was pushing and I couldn't see it. No, all right,
Yeah.
whatever. Did that happen in the movie?
Yeah, it did. But okay, so I think the way it happened in the movie, I'm trying, like, again, it's been a little bit since I saw him, but the way that I remember it is it all starts with Janet. Like, she starts having experiences. Um, I don't remember if she used to sleepwalk, but she would, like, I know she started having like stuff happen to her specifically first, and then
Yeah.
she thought it was her sister, playing pranks with her, but then she woke up and she saw that her sister was still asleep, and then so she kind of like,
Oh no.
what the fuck?
No. Hold on. Carlos? No.
What the fuck was
Are you
that,
here?
dude?
Okay, to be fair, we've been having issues with this light,
Uh huh.
but oh my god.
Uh,
Oh my god.
just
Okay.
so you guys,
So
okay, go ahead, you
I'm
tell
I'm
her.
okay. I'm okay. Okay, I'm leaving this fucking door open. If there is a
Echo.
echo or something, I do not give a shit. So we're talking about poltergeist activity, we're talking about all this shit, and the light in my closet literally started flickering. I'm literally gonna take this like video and just post it probably on Instagram, even though I look like trash, but you guys just need to see how fucking
That was crazy. I
scary
like,
that was. Oh my
yeah.
god. No, thank you. I don't have sage or a candle or anything right now.
See, man, y'all, you're
Woo!
fucking up, sissy.
Oh
I
god, I'm
basically
so
have an
scared right
altar
now.
in front of me. Like, I have two Saint Michael candles. I have my sage. I have my Palo Santo. I have my amethyst that you gave me. I have the
Whew.
one that Mariano gave me, the quartz,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
The other one that you gave me, that I always
Bro,
forget.
that was so scary.
That was a trip.
Terminally, I don't even know.
Well,
Okay.
once you guys see it, and like it was fucked up because I was literally talking about the shit that was happening to the little girl, and then you'll see it. The
Lights
lights
flickered
start
out of a
flickering.
fucking horror movie.
Yeah, it
Like, it was
wasn't
out
just
of a
like
horror
it
movie.
wasn't just like a little flicker. No, that shit was going nuts. Like the lights, like
Oh
yeah.
God. Okay,
If
I
you're
don't know
listening
if
to
it
this,
was
guys, and you're not following us on social media, go to social media right now and fucking check out
just
the
watch
video that
it.
Michelle's gonna
Just
post.
watch.
It's
Oh my God.
crazy.
That scared the shit out of me. Okay, I'm fine. I'm fine. I will do some sort of cleansing or something after, but holy shit. I just can't set up a little altar in my closet. I'm afraid something's gonna catch fire.
Yeah. Um.
Um Holy
So
shit. I don't even know where we're at. Where were
yeah,
you
I
at?
was
Do you remember?
talking. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was talking
Okay.
about. So she started
I need to
having
drink the wine.
experiences, right? And then she
Mhm.
ends up. I think at some point, I think she ends up like teleporting downstairs or some shit. Like she was in her room, and then she's like in the living room, and then she gets up and she goes
Mm.
back. I think she just goes back to her room, and she's like kind of freaked out because I think she used to sleepwalk too because she tied.
Aliens.
I think she used to
Just kidding.
sleepwalk because she tied herself to the bed.
Hmm.
So they thought that's what it was too, and
Yeah.
then at some point, I think the sister starts. Oh, she wakes up and she starts freaking out, and she tells her sister that somebody's in the corner of the room. So then
Ugh, God. I know.
so then the sister goes and she's like she starts walking to the corner of the room, and like it's all suspenseful, you're waiting for this shit. And dude, okay, I'm gonna be honest with you, I looked up a website that told you where all the jump scares were gonna happen just so that I wasn't fucking freaked out. I swear to God, because
Why?
I hate that's
It's
I told
oh
you I
my
hate jump
gosh.
scares, so I made sure that. And the thing is, it tells you like the times, and you can even like sync it to when you're watching the movie. You can sync it
Yeah.
so that the like say
Oh
you're watching
my
it on your
God.
computer, the website will tell you this. But I didn't do that. I just looked at the thing,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, this is at this many minutes. I was like, so I'm at this time, so it's in this many minutes, and like I was doing the math in my head while watching the movie.
Oh my God.
So then I knew there was gonna some shit was gonna happen. So she goes to the corner,
Yeah.
right, and she opens the like she's the because the door flung open, or like it started to creep open, so the little girl like freaks out, and then so her sister she wakes her sister up, and she's like, "There's somebody in the room," and then she goes to check the door, and she opens the door like or closes the door
Mhm.
technically, but there's nobody there, and then she turns around and she says, "There's nobody here," and then that's when like just something
Ooh.
comes, yeah, and then
Ugh.
I think they both that's when they go running into the corner, they're screaming and freaked
Oh,
out,
so
and
that's
then the mom
okay.
comes in.
Okay.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's similar.
yeah, and
Similar.
then I want to say after that the brother started having experience. I don't know if you have this in your notes, but the brother starts having experiences, and then he starts freaking out, and then the mom like um I guess goes to his room because he was freaking out. Like it's a separate time, but she goes to his
Yeah.
room because he was also freaking out. And then I think she heard like loud banging and stuff downstairs. So she goes downstairs and she's like in the kitchen, and then all of a sudden you see somebody like pass by like in the hallway and stuff like that, and you're like, oh shit, here we go again. And then she goes into the living room, and then she sees Janet, right? That's the young one. That's the
Yeah.
younger of the
The
two.
younger daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so Janet was sitting in the chair in the corner of the room, like just sitting there. And
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay.
so she sees her and she's like, "Oh, it's just you, this and that." And so she gets her up and takes her back to the room. And then like after that, it's that's where shit starts getting kind of crazy. But the thing too that the sister told her, um, the sister got upset with her because I believe her and her friend in the movie at the very beginning, they had made a Ouija board, and they wanted to play with it. And so they might have played with it already. And then so Janet had it under her bed, and then the sister found it, and then she's got on her case about it, kind of like the way I tell you that you shouldn't play
Okay.
with one. And then she was like, "Oh, you shouldn't be doing
Play with
this,
it.
yeah, this and that."
Okay. You're going too far
Oh,
into the
okay, I'm
movie.
sorry. No, no, this is actually like
Well,
okay. I'm
let's
sorry.
just
So
yeah.
yeah, go
Well,
ahead.
we don't. You don't want to say like the whole
Right, right,
movie.
right,
You
right.
just gotta yeah.
I'll go with what you.
But but I'm sad that obviously I don't remember the movie because I had saved this fun fact for the very, 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 very end, but I guess it came out in the movie, so it's not a fun fact.
Oh,
Janet did say that all of this happened after they played with the Ouija board, but her and her older sister.
oh,
And then
okay.
all this shit hit the fan. So I guess in the movie, the older sister's like, you shouldn't play with this. But in real life, her and her
Hmm.
sister actually did play with it. And then that's when all this stuff kind of
Yeah,
started happening.
and the whole chest, the chest of drawer things. I don't remember. I'm trying to remember, but it might have been when the mom ran in there after they freaked out, or it
Yeah.
might have been like another night that because like they in the
I mean,
movie.
there's multiple
Yeah,
nights of
yeah,
shit
yeah.
happening. I mean,
Hmm.
and we're gonna get into what else
Yeah.
kind of went down, but so after that happened with the chest moving, obviously she was freaked the fuck out and she ran over to the neighbor's house. Vic and Peggy, yes, same name,
Yeah.
but so there's two Peggy's. There's Mom Peggy and Neighbor Peggy.
Hmm.
But yeah, so Vic and Peggy Nottingham, and those are actually fake names. There's a book written about this whole experience from the authors or like some of the researchers that came over to the house, and they changed everybody's name who wanted to be changed, and so the Nottingham Vic and Peggy Nottingham aren't actually their names. Fun fact. But so Vic and Peggy, accompanied them back to the house. And I mean, they also heard the weird noises like knocks on and banging on the walls and doors. And like they could not figure out where this was coming from. And at
Hmm.
one point, like Vic even says, like, I went in there and I couldn't make out these noises. There was knocking on the wall, in the bedroom, on the ceiling. I was beginning to get a bit frightened. So, I mean, already we not only do we have like this whole family, but we have the two neighbors who are also experiencing these weird
Yeah.
noises, right? And so with that, they're like, let's call the cops. So they call the cops, but the cops also hear all these weird noises and they can't figure out where it's coming from either. So now we have, I mean, you have regular people experiencing these things and it's one thing, but when you have people like police officers or scientists or doctors who are more like, who are more likely to lean towards like rational side of things, they they were also experiencing these things and it almost seemed to like follow them around the house as well. And they also had an experience, and police constable Carolyn Heaps actually wrote in the official report that, quote, a large armchair moved unassisted 4 feet across the floor. She inspected the chair for wires, but I mean they couldn't find an explanation for what just happened. And I'm fairly certain that came out in the movie too, right? Because then they
Something
like quickly like
similar.
leave the house, or yeah, something happens, and I remember that being a supposed like funny part of the movie
Hmm.
where like the cops were like fuck this and they just like
Yeah.
leave the house like nope, sorry, you can't do anything.
Yeah. Sort of.
um
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I mean that kind of, well, at least in real life that happens, like the officers leave and they're like, I mean, sorry, like it's not a police matter, like they can't do anything about it, like no one's breaking the law, which I mean, I get it, but that, at least there's two more witnesses that experience something.
Hmm.
Were you
So
gonna?
yeah, so in the movie, that's basically the. I think when the whole chest of like the chest gets pushed up against the door, I think that's when they freak the like they freak out. I
Yeah,
mean, of course, like why wouldn't
of
you
course, yeah.
just freak the fuck out? And then they went running to the neighbor's house and they were banging on the door. What like surprises the shit out of me? Well, okay, I'm trying to remember if they believed it was ghosts right away or if they thought it was burglars. So that's why
I
the
feel like it was burglars.
husband went to go check,
Yeah.
but then like
Hmm.
stuff started happening. He's like, this shit ain't normal, dude. Because him and the mom went, and then the his wife stayed with the kids,
Hmm.
and so that's when they called the police, and the police show up, and then they start hearing noises, and then the female cop, she's like, it sounds like she. I guess she thought it was pipes. So what she
Hmm.
grabs is she grabs a chair out of the kitchen, like drags it out of the kitchen into the hallway, stands up on it, and then she starts checking like to see if like she can hear some noises up like up in the ceiling or in the walls and stuff. And then I think when she gets off the chair, the chair starts shaking, and then it starts like it just slides back into the kitchen, like back at the table where she had pulled it from. So then that's
How
what.
is that not the same thing that
Oh,
I?
because no. But that's why I said it's
Oh,
similar, but it's different because in here it's saying it's an armchair that moved 4 feet across, and this one like
gotcha.
literally like goes back down the like a little bit of the hallway, and then like goes back into the
Where it
kitchen.
was at.
So like you
Gotcha.
said, it was a funny part of the movie because you're like that's fucking hilarious because like this chair
Yeah.
literally just like slides back into the kitchen and stuff. And then like you said, they ran out of the they all go outside, and they tell her, yeah, this is not a police matter. And I think that the lady tells her that she needs to get the church involved.
Got
The
it.
inspector, I believe she did also say that she was going to put it in the report, but there's nothing that they could do.
Yeah.
So
Well, she did.
she encouraged her to go to the church to get this figured out because it was paranormal in the movie. But again, this is
Yeah.
super close to what you're reading here as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually surprised that they got that much, you know,
In there.
in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And I think this is where like some of this might start to deviate the movie from like reality.
yeah, maybe, probably. So the disturbances only got worse from there. The Hodgsons reportedly suffered all kinds of strange things happening in the house for the next 18 months. So things like furniture being overturned, toys being thrown, banging noises, writing appearing on the walls, and even levitating children. Um, in 2012, Janet told ITV the cups would unexplicably the cups would unexplicably fill with water. Things would randomly burst into flame. From another article I read, it was like matches. Like
Mm.
they would be laying there and then pew, catch fire. And the disembodied voices would speak to them too. I can't wait to get more into detail with that. But let's keep going. According to Janet, the most frightening encounter was when a curtain wrapped itself around her neck next to her bed. And I'm fairly certain this comes out in the movie.
Hmm.
I feel like it comes out in quite a few horror movies, and I almost feel like they are inspired by this event because I've never heard it prior to. Um, but just the thought of curtains wrapping around my neck and choking me, and again, just not being able to be like hit somebody, like it's just curtains are alive.
Yeah.
It's freaky, but I mean, I'm fairly certain this comes out in the movie, right?
Yeah. You haven't mentioned him yet, so I'm not gonna go into detail about it, I guess, yet,
Oh,
because it happens towards
okay,
the end of the movie. But it does
okay.
happen. Yeah.
Well, then let me keep going.
Hmm.
Okay, so Peggy eventually turned to the press for help, reaching out to the Daily Mirror. The tabloid sent a photographer, Graham Morris, to the house to capture the hauntings, and then that's basically what you thought all hell broke loose. No, now, now all hell has broken loose. The Enfield case might be one of the best documented paranormal cases in history, thanks to Morris's disturbing pictures of his visit to the Hodgson's house. And again, guys, if you follow us on social media, I wish I knew what episode off the top of my head, but the deep dive on Poltergeist, I actually use one of those photos. It's actually a photo of Janet like flying across the room, and I'll add more of these photos. And Eric, I'm sorry I didn't add them in the report, but if you Google them,
Hmm.
you're gonna find them right away. It's creepy as fuck, but yeah, I'll add those so that you guys can see them. And so like I said, among these photos was a photo of Janet being tossed around her bedroom by the poltergeist while her sister Margaret watches in horror. As you might suspect, if you've watched The Conjuring 2, it's very possible that the picture is staged, Janet leaping off her bed onto the floor, but we can only go by Morris's account, and he seemed pretty convinced, so, I mean, I don't know. You can call everyone a liar, I guess, if you want.
Yeah.
He said that it was chaos. Like things started flying around, people were screaming. The BBC even went to the house, but the crew found that the metal components in their tape equipment had been twisted, and so all the recordings were erased.
Oh,
Which, I know, yeah. Like, I mean, it's pretty similar to like batteries being drained and
Mm-hmm.
shit just like, not being caught on camera, even though like you're pointing it right on there, like static and shit like that. So that doesn't really surprise me, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Daily Mirror and the Hodgins next calls paranormal investigators of the Society Society of Cyclical Research.
No, you said cyclical.
Well, I'm trying to. That's what you said last
No,
time.
I said cyclical. But cyclical would be like a cycle, like, and then you're
Okay, so
adding an extra.
cyclical
No,
research.
you're adding an extra L.
Sick, sickle,
Psychic.
psychical
Yeah, there you go.
Society of Psychical Research.
You could just say
Right?
it however, like, if you want. If you feel more comfortable saying psychical, we can say psychical, as long as we don't say physic
SPR.
SPR. Oh, that's what we were. That's what we
That's
were.
what we said
Yeah,
last time.
yeah.
We already, again, in case you haven't listened to previous episodes, we had a whole argument about cyclical,
Psychical and
and
psychical.
then we were just like SPR.
SPR. Yeah.
um, it is not physical research.
Yes. No, it's not.
No. Anyway,
It's actually
um,
pretty much would say it's kind of the opposite. No.
yeah, it's accurate. So yeah, they called in paranormal investigators from SPR, including Maurice Gross and Anita Gregory, along with Guyland Playfair, who actually doesn't come out in the movie, but he's a skeptic, so we don't want him there anyway.
No, they had somebody else there that was a skeptic. That was a female,
Oh,
actually.
well, was it probably not Anita Gregory?
I don't remember her name. I would have to look at
Okay.
the IMDb to see who the character was. That way, I'll do that while you keep going.
So Gross says, when I first got there, nothing happened for a while. Then I experienced Lego pieces flying across the room and marbles. And the extraordinary thing was when you picked them up, they were hot. So this is like one of the like bigger things is, I mean, we talked about things getting tossed around and toys being tossed around as well. But literally marbles would be like pelted at people's heads, which fuck that. And then Legos flying across the room. Imagine stepping on one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was the weird thing about them is like you would pick them up and they're hot. Like I don't. It's like
Weird.
because the energy of the poltergeist like
Mm-hmm.
maybe it, like heats it up. I don't know. But yeah, so I thought that was kind of weird. Does that happen in the movie? Like things being tossed around like that?
That's when the little brother starts having. He's got a speech, so he stutters.
Mm.
Um, and him and Janet always do the Crooked Man song poem thing, which is a very fucking creepy song. I mean, if you ask me, like, I don't know why that's a children's song.
I mean, if you really think about children's
Well, yeah,
songs,
that's
like
true. Bring around the Rosie and all that shit. Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, so then the little boy has like a teepee set up on the top of the stairs, like in front of his room, and like he hears his toy fire truck going off, and the fire truck, I think, gets pushed into his room or something, and then he pushes it back all the way to the teepee, and then it goes into the teepee, and all of a sudden it gets pushed back out, and then like he starts walking towards it, and then the Crooked Man comes out and he starts freaking the fuck out, runs back
Nope.
to his room, and I think he covers his head, and that's when the mom comes in and I was like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
Because she had told, like, he had eaten some cookies or crackers, and she told him, don't do it because you're gonna get thirsty, and which he did. He ends up going downstairs, drinks water,
Oh
comes
yeah,
back
yeah.
upstairs, and that's when he starts experiencing shit with the TP. So that
Mm-hmm.
was, I think, the only thing that toy related as far as like toys moving.
Yeah.
So I did look it up. It is Anita Gregory that is the skeptic in the
Oh, okay.
in the movie. So she's like,
Yeah.
because at this point, like, the Warrens are there, so I would assume the Warrens are who Maurice and Anita are supposed to be. Like, they're not replacing the characters, because both Maurice and Anita are in the movie,
Yeah.
but Maurice is more the like, I think he was the one that wanted to bring the Warrens on,
He was
and
the main
then
person, yeah.
yeah, and then Anita in the movie is a skeptic. So she's like, everything they're saying, she's like, oh, this is bullshit. This is, you explain it this way, explain it that way, blah blah blah, this and that.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Um, And
Um,
they also did that have the BBC. I think the Warrens didn't come in until after the BBC thing happened, and like that got
yeah,
played.
sounds about right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and the thing about Maurice is they got really close to him. Like they really liked him because he was in the house a lot. Like
Mhm.
he was the main investigator, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I mean he essentially like lived there, and like it was. I think I'll mention it a little bit later, but like yeah, Janet didn't want him to leave. Like they all very much like really liked him being
Yeah.
in the house,
And
and
I
maybe
think
it
it
was just that they
was.
needed a father figure,
Mhm.
and he was kind of that. But yeah.
I think it was the same in the movie as far as him being the one that was a lot more involved with the family at the very beginning. I think he's even the one that got the BBC people to come
Hmm.
in the movie. Although that whole father figure thing that you're talking about, I think that got in the movie got placed onto
Ed.
Ed Warren.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
because they
I guess
literally
let's
didn't want
leave that
Ed
out.
and Lorraine Warren to leave in the movie.
Yeah. Okay. So then that's a little bit on. Yeah, that makes sense. But all right. So moving on. One day, Maurice was visiting the neighbor and found one of the children shouting, "I can't move! It's holding my leg!" So then they had to actually wrestle the child from what they all thought or insisted on was a grip from invisible hands. So again, my worst nightmare. Next to dolls, I don't
Hmm.
know which one's worse. I think dolls are worse, but um, yeah. So this thing was holding one of the children down, and again, like they just kept hearing the knocking all over the house, just not knowing where it was coming from. Um, it would run down like the wall, fading in and out as it apparently played some sort of like creepy game with the family. And they just got so scared that they ended up all sleeping in the same room with with the light on,
Hmm.
which that sucks. But I mean, yeah, I can imagine being that scared. Most of the activity centered around Janet, who was 11, and she would go into violent trances, which were like just awful to see, apparently. And on one occasion, the iron fireplace in her bedroom was wrenched from the wall by again an unseen force. Fuck that. And they also claimed to see her levitating and floating across the room, which again, some of those pictures, some people go back and forth as far as whether they're real or fake. Um, but I'll post those pictures so that you guys can see them as well. And at one point, Janet told Channel 4 News, I guess they're in the UK, that I felt that she says, quotes, "I felt used by force that nobody understands. I really don't like to think about it much. I'm not sure the poltergeist was truly evil." I don't know, man. Sounds pretty fucking evil.
Yeah.
But that it was almost as if it wanted to be a part of the family. It didn't want to hurt us. It had died there and wanted to be at rest. The only way it could communicate was through me and my sister. And I mean, I guess maybe to an extent of, if that's the only way that you can communicate with someone and you're desperate to communicate and like get what you have to say out, like
Hmm.
I taking over a fucking 11-year-old's body and speaking through her probably doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's scary to be on the other side of that, I guess. So that is when the poltergeist decided to speak. And I'm sure, Eric, you'll get into details with this, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
go through like
Keep.
quote unquote what actually happened.
Yeah. Go through what happened, and then I'll start talking about what because then you'll mention
Happened in the movie.
you'll mention the man, and I can start talking about other stuff too.
Him.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in the movie, the ghost of Bill Wilkins reached out to the investigators through Janet. And this is the raspy voice that I was talking about in the videos that hopefully I'll be able to insert at some point in here. Um, but the raspy voice is coming from her, and like her hips, her lips would be moving.
Her hips don't
Um,
lie.
her hips don't lie, but her lips do. Just kidding. Um, Almost like a ventriloquist though. So like, you know how they like barely move their mouth. I'm trying to do it now as if you guys can see me, but yeah, they barely like move their mouths, but still get full clear words out. So the spirit told Gross and Playfair that um, quote, just before I died, I went blind, and then I had a hemorrhage, and I fell asleep, and I died in the chair in the corner downstairs. Investigators later confirmed with Wilkinson's son that a man by the name had indeed died in the house many years ago. Um, many years ago. I feel like it's a little more in depth in the movie than what
Yeah.
I'm saying right now.
Well, no, it's again a lot of like what happened with Maurice and the other investigators is transferred on. Maurice was there in the movie, but Maurice was there in the movie with the whole Bill Wilkins thing, but then it was the Warrens that were actually the investigators that came into to talk to her and stuff like that. But going back real quick to the thing grabbing I think it ended up grabbing Billy's leg, or the little boy, the one with a speech impediment. I want to say it was
Yeah.
Billy. Um, but it was like, I think the neighbors had a Rottweiler or something, and the Rottweiler was he thought it was a Rottweiler standing next to him, but then it shape shifted into the Crooked Man, and then that
Fuck
Crooked Man
that.
ended up grabbing him, and then I think they were all sleeping in the living room, but they were sleeping in the living room of Peggy and what's his name, Vic. What'd you say his name was?
Vic and Peggy.
Vic
Yeah,
and
were the
Peggy. Yeah.
neighbors. Yeah.
So they were sleeping in their living room. They weren't staying at their house anymore because
Oh,
shit
okay.
just was getting
It
too
was
crazy.
just,
That
yeah.
they went to go live with them for a while, and they slept in the living room. And then they were all in the living room, and then they see the Crooked Man's shadow coming down the hallway, and they're like freaking out because they're like, what the
Of
fuck is
course.
going on? And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden the person that walks out of the living room or out of the hallway is Janet.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And then so that happened, and then again there was instances where she teleported, or at the very beginning, when she started having like all these experiences, she started feeling kind of weird. She stayed home from school one day because like she felt, yeah, she just felt drained and stuff, I guess, from the possession that she was having. And the TV starts going kind of weird, and she's like looking for the controller, the remote control for the TV, and it's in that chair in the corner of the room. So she's like, what the fuck? So she goes and she grabs it, and then she's like, she has it there, and then it disappears again. And then I don't remember if the TV goes like staticky or if it turns off, and then you can kind of see a man sitting in the chair in the back. And
Mm-hmm.
then she starts freaking out a little bit, and then all of a sudden it's one of those jump scares where like all of a sudden he's like standing behind her, and he yells like, this is my house, or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And then that's when she starts having more experiences with Bill. She gets bitten in the movie. In At one point, like she's in bed, and she has bite marks on her.
Mm.
And then at one point she ends up teleporting back into I think she was sleeping with her mom, and they had locked. Oh, by the time the Warrens came, they had locked the room with a chain, so nobody could go into the room. And I think they had put crosses all up in the room. And I think they were sleeping in the house again, but Janet was sleeping with Peggy in her room, and she ended up teleporting into the room. And they were like, how the fuck did she get in here if the room is locked? And then I think the Warrens were staying with them, like living in the house at the time. So then Peggy starts screaming that she's in the room, and like they're trying to get the door open, and they're asking, like they're trying to pry it open, and they can see like the door kind of open, so they can see like a crack. And then Janet tries to like she's trying to get out, and then Bill, like you just see Bill come from behind her. His hand like comes around her face, and he pulls her back into the room. And then they're finally
No.
able to get the door open, and when they open the door, that's when they find her wrapped up in the curtains, like she's being suffocated.
Oh, yeah.
And so then they go and they pull her off, and all that stuff. And I think before that also is when they do the whole the Warrens show up and they're wanting to talk to Bill. So she's doing the whole, or the what's his name? Ed tells her that he wants her to take a drink of water, hold it in her mouth,
Oh yeah,
and make her
I'll get
and to
into
make her
that.
speak. Oh, okay. The only reason I had started bringing up the whole water thing was because since they mentioned that her lips start like hardly seem to be moving and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and then the whole thing about the going blind and the hemorrhage and that he fell asleep and
Yeah.
died in the chair, like all of that happens like at the very 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 end of the movie with Lorraine Warren,
Mm.
where
No, I mean,
he like she goes into like this trance and he tells her, and that's when the whole nun thing happens.
oh no, I mean they put this poor girl like through rigorous tests. I mean, I know that there's been multiple studies like with the audio and just back then too that like how is this 11-year-old able to do this? And it's again skeptics are like, oh yeah, she there. I was gonna mention it later, but there was one crazy ass report saying that like, oh well, she studied ventriloquism. It's like, who the fuck studies ventriloquism and like where like anyway, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I have heard Jeff Dunham say that you have to start young, but he usually says that you have to start like at like between that age, like a 7 to 11, whatever, to start getting
Yeah.
really good as an adult. So, like, I don't think an 11-year-old is going to be like a super pro at ventriloquism. I mean, I
Like
could be
already.
completely wrong.
Well, okay, but here's the thing is like they did do testing like you said, like they made her hold water in her mouth and they could still hear the voices and it wasn't just voices, like it was actually like animal noises too, like
Hmm.
dogs barking and things like that. And like I said, if I can insert the audio in here, I mean you guys will be able to hear that. It's very hard to understand what they're saying because of the accent,
Hmm.
but just that raspy voice like that should and again, not just my personal opinion, but other people who have studied and like kind of looked into it, it's nearly impossible or just impossible for an 11-year-old's vocal cords to be able to go this low and be that raspy and
Hmm.
to be able to hold that for like long periods of time, like whole conversations. And I mean, they taped her mouth shut, they put water in her mouth, they put water in her mouth and then taped her mouth shut. Like, I mean, they you know, they did a lot to this poor girl,
Yeah.
and they were still able to get the same or similar results. So,
So
yeah.
since we're talking real quick about the water, so in the movie, what happens is they make her hold the water in her mouth, and then uh they're just sitting there staring at her, and nothing's happening, and then I don't remember if she spits the water out or she swallows it. It doesn't matter. Point is, she starts saying, oh, it's because Bill's saying that, like he does it, like basically like he doesn't want to be like stared at, like he doesn't feel comfortable
Mm,
with them staring and stuff. So he makes them all turn around. So the little girl says he wants you guys to turn around. So they watch her put the water in her mouth, and they all turn their backs, and then you're watching it, right? But they're not seeing
yeah.
it. But then you're seeing, so you're seeing her, and you're starting to hear him say stuff, which is this is kind of
Mm,
something kind of cool that they did in the movie. Like I'm not sure if this happened in real life, but it's not making sense what he's saying because it's like a phrase, but it's broken up.
mm-hmm.
Um, and so he's talking, and then the cool thing is in the movie you can kind of see like as the conversation's going on, you can kind of see it go from her to like the shadow
Him.
of a man, yeah, of an old man sitting in there, and then uh like I guess he goes away and the little girl comes back, and then they all turn around and she spits the water out into the cup this time. And then I think later on Anita,
Mm-hmm.
who again was a skeptic in the movie, was like, well, how do you, like, since y'all were turned around, how do you know she didn't spit the water out? And then right before you guys turned around again, she put the water back in her mouth. So, but I mean, that's not obviously what happened in real life, because they taped their mouth shut and everybody's watching her. And in the movie, that wasn't the case. So that's why there was a lot of things that were like happening, and then Anita would be like, oh but this, or oh but that, and then they were like, well, I mean, she kind of has a point and we have to have like super concrete evidence, but we can't find any. And
I mean, I'll get a little bit into that and like the skeptics and stuff like that, and in a second.
Mm-hmm.
I know that another thing that what happened and why people were like, no, like this is legit, was that sometimes you would hear two voices. You would hear her voice
Mm.
and this like separate entity, and they had her sing a song. It was like an old like nursery rhyme. Or I mean, us Americans aren't familiar with it, but it's like a like old like UK like nursery rhyme, and so they had her start singing it, and she's singing it, and then all of a sudden this other voice starts like fucking singing along with her, and then she thinks it's hilarious, and so she starts laughing, and then this entity also starts laughing like with her, and it's just like this super creepy like what the fuck is happening? Like what is it? Is this her? Like is she somehow like some other projection of her, or is this other like it was just creepy and weird to like read about some of these things, but yeah, a lot happened. I mean, I feel like even more happened than what we're even talking about right now, but
Mm-hmm.
trying to keep this episode around an hour, which is we're already kind of hitting that mark, but I will say that now we can talk about the Warrens because that's about it's about when they actually came. They obviously clearly were not very heavily involved like they were in the movie, but they were a part of the case. Um, they briefly investigated the Enfield Poltergeist in the summer of 1978, which basically is when everything kind of started winding down. Um, and there are just like two of the shit ton of investigators that visited the house, and a lot of the articles about the Enfield Poltergeist case don't even mention the Warrens, leading one to conclude that their role in the case was significantly dramatized for The Conjuring 2, which I mentioned at the very start. Um, like it's literally not even on their website,
Mm-hmm.
like the case studies and stuff like that. Like it's not on there. In fact, Guy Playfair, one of the original paranormal investigators on the case, came forward prior to the movie's release and said that the Warrens had showed up, quote unquote, uninvited and only stayed for a day. He also said that Ed Warren told him he could make him a lot of money off the case. Ed Warren touched on the case and its skeptics in Gerald Brittle's book, The Demonologist, stating, quote, inhumane spirit phenomena were in progress. Now, you can't record the dangerous, threatening atmosphere inside the house, but you could film the levitations, teleportations, and dematerializations of people and objects that were happening there, not to mention the many hundreds of hours of tape recordings made of the spirit voices speaking aloud in the rooms. As the case became quickly viewed as a hoax, some saw it as proof that the Warrens themselves were frauds. So, I mean, I spoke about that in the first deep dive of The Conjuring, so last month, that you know a lot of people talk shit about the Warrens and that they were frauds, and this is one of those cases where people were like, "Fuck them," like they're full of shit. Because they weren't actually really involved. They still made money off the case and they talked a whole lot of game, but it was like, you guys weren't even there kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I heard that you said that they mentioned dematerialization. So that would be the teleportations that I guess Janet was experiencing, where she
yeah,
would be in the mom's room and then she kind of teleported into the house, or she was in her room and then she fell off the bed and she had actually fallen off the bed into the
that's right.
downstairs.
I actually, let me just get this last little sentence in here. Is that Janet reported that it was a priest's visit into the home that resulted in the incidents, quote, quieting down in the
Mm-hmm.
autumn of 1978. Although the occurrences did not stop entirely, she says, with her mother continuing to hear noises in the house. And I know too that her little brother would also hear things and also feel like someone was watching, basically like
Mm-hmm.
that feeling never went away. So I guess the bigger activity went away, but there is still something there.
Yeah.
Maurice, like the only reason that he had actually taken on the case was because his daughter had passed away,
Mm-hmm.
and he kept kind of getting these signs, I guess, and then felt like his daughter was giving him signs that he needed to like go investigate this case. So he did, and then like I know that at one point like Lorraine Warren was like, "Oh, your daughter's involved with this demon entity, like whatever it was, and that's why you're involved as well." And then at the end, like Maurice's daughter is quote unquote released, and so then that's why he's like feels like he can kind of step away from this, or things are done. But that's just kind of like a
I want to say there was
side
something
note.
similar, like in the movie, like as far as
Mm,
like his daughter passing away, and like it was
like
part of
that
the reason.
connection.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Well, um, should we get into the skeptic stuff?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Because I saw Anita's name there, and I was like,
Yeah,
hmm.
she's one of the skeptics. That's why I asked you. I was like, well, who's a skeptic?
Because yeah, well, that was weird to me because it seemed like I thought since she was one of the
One of the
investigators, I
investigators.
thought
Yeah.
she was like she believed it, and then I'm
No.
reading what she wrote, and I'm like, well, maybe I guess okay, all right.
Yeah. She was a skeptic, and even with well over 30 witnesses to everything that happened in that house, there are still skeptics. And I mean, the debate around the Enfield case just like it continues to today. Everyone, not everyone, sorry, some people think it's bullshit, and some people think that it's real. And even Playfair observed in his case notes that Wilkins generally, quote, refused to speak unless the girls were alone in the room with the door closed, and that the Hodgson children were motivated to add to the activity with some tricks of their own. And I mean, well, I'll get into it some more. Playfair wrote that Janet knew cameras were on and that nothing seemed to happen, but Gross and Playfair were believers. So even though that he Playfair kind of knew that they would mess around and stuff, like he was still a believer.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like I mentioned that there is even one report that said she was studying ventriloquism, which just seems like a stretch because it's literally just like this one report and you can't find that information anywhere else. So,
Yeah.
but I thought it was fun, so I added it in there because it just seems ridiculous. Um, so Anita Gregory, who we talked about, she was one of the investigators, and you've brought up she's in the movie too. Apparently, concluded that the case was overrated, and many skeptics accused the Hodgson family of making up the haunting for fame and financial gain. Which, I mean, they didn't really get much, so. Um, I mean, they continued to live in the house. Like, it's not like they were rolling in cash and they just like went and bought themselves a mansion or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at different points in the at different points, the investigators caught the girls bending spoons, which you mentioned. So that did actually happen. Um, and banging on the ceilings with broom handles. So, like in the movie, catching the girls in the act seemed to be enough for Gregory and the others to close the case. But in 1980, Janet admitted to ITV, quote, "Oh yeah, once or twice we faked phenomena just to see if Mr. Gross and Mr. Playfair would catch us. They always did." Just ahead of the movie's release, Janet told the Daily Mail that only, quote, 2% of the occurrences were faked.
So before you continue, in the movie, Anita Gregory does say these things as well about the family faking the haunting to get famous and for financial gain. Again, because they were poor, she felt like, oh, they're just doing this to get money so that they're not in the situation that they're in. And as far as Janet admitting that about faking stuff when she was confronted about the bending of the spoon, she did say, yes, I did bend the spoon, but in the movie she said it was because the demon, or whatever was possessing her, told her that if she didn't say that like if she didn't do it and make them, oh, that was it, that's what it was. She was trying to make it look fake so that they would leave, because
Mm,
the demon wanted them gone. She said if you don't make them leave, or if you don't find a way to make them leave, that she was going to kill the entire family or something like that.
uh,
So in the movie, it was because that was the reason why she faked it, and
mhm.
she did the whole thing in the kitchen with bending the spoon and stuff like that. So just that's want to throw that in
Yeah.
there.
No, well, I mean, and a few articles that I read also mentioned that, I mean, they did it because they were bored children. Like, that, yeah, they did just kind of want to like fuck around with people. I mean, and they didn't realize I guess the consequences
Mm-hmm.
to what playing around like that would do for the investigation. Um, and I mean, yeah, that they were just bored and they were like, well, they're here looking for ghosts. Let's give them ghosts, not really thinking like this could ruin the whole investigation kind of
Yeah.
thing. Um, and another quote that I had read was that, again, like I had mentioned, they really loved Maurice being there. And now I'm like, is it Morris or is it Maurice?
I think it's Maurice. But you've been saying Maurice.
I know, but now I'm like, is it Morris or is it Maurice?
Well, I don't know.
I said the other deep dive Perron or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, I think it's
Anyway,
I think it's
it's
Maurice.
Maurice. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so they, yeah, that they had done all these things because they didn't want Maurice to leave. Again, because they got really close to him and they're like, well, maybe if we like bend some spoons and like do this and that, he'll want to investigate more and he'll stay. And um but it was all very innocent. And I mean, she even said that, or I mean, like I mentioned, that the 2% of those things were faked,
Mm-hmm.
like that everything else was real. So they actually also got this like legit magician, and not like kids show birthday party like magician.
Like a
Um,
Penn and Teller David Copperfield
I
magician.
guess I don't know. It just says a magician named Melbourne Christopher, and he dropped by to check things out and said that the activity was a work of a little girl who wanted to cause trouble and who was very, very clever. And Ray Allen, who was a ventriloquist, said that Janet was playing tricks with Bill's voice because she enjoyed the attention, which is usually what people say with young girls and poltergeist activity, that it's always the work of bored women or children,
Mm-hmm.
girl children. But by 1979, the tabloids had moved on from the Hodgsons, and while the experts couldn't agree on a logical explanation, despite the movie's happy ending, the real life case was never truly closed. The next family that moved in reported strange incidents too, including hearing voices downstairs and encountering a man walking into rooms. Though they only lived there for about 2 months before they moved out. And years later, Janet called the events that she lived through in the house traumatic, revealing that she had a short spell in a psychiatric hospital and that she was bullied at school and her classmates would call her Ghost Girl, which I'd be totally fine if people called me Ghost Girl.
And I
Just
think
saying.
I think they called her that in the movie as well. Like,
Oh,
so they
really?
had to pull it. I don't know if they pulled it out of school or she stopped going to school for a while because
Uh,
they were called, like, she was getting picked on a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she told the Daily Mail that her mother also had a nervous breakdown. And I mean, it's obviously not surprising. And then Janet wasn't very happy to hear about the film actually being like made about the case.
Mm-hmm.
Because it kind of like dug up old memories for her and she kind of wanted to just leave those behind. But now it's out there in front of the world for everyone to see. And she had actually moved out of the house at age 16 and like married young and just tried to distance herself from the whole thing. And I honestly, is not in the notes, but other things that I've read, that I feel like the family experienced a whole lot of tragedy. One of her younger brothers ended up dying of cancer at like age 14.
Oh
Her
man,
mother also died of cancer. Like, it was just, I don't know. It just seemed like they all kind of,
definitely not the happy ending that they had in the movie.
no, not at all, not at all. And the house is actually currently occupied by another family, but they don't want to be identified, which I get it. But the mother of the household says that she's got children. They don't know about it, and she doesn't want to scare them.
Oh man,
So,
so that means the
can you
mom
imagine?
knows, and I
Yeah,
can't imagine like living in the house knowing what happened there prior.
Yeah, for real. This is where I was supposed to insert my fun fact about this all started because they played with the Ouija board, but we already.
Sorry.
It was in the movie. Well, it was in the movie, so I
Yeah.
guess it's not a fun fact.
And it was like literally like the first thing that comes on the movie.
Yeah.
Well, like them having the Ouija board, and then a little bit later on, the sister, like, you know, tells her, you shouldn't be playing with this.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, and that's it. That's a wrap. That's the Enfield Poltergeist. And again, guys, like there's, I feel like so much more to this story. As far as like we could kind of go into more of the experiences and deep dive those and whatnot, but
then this would be a 3-hour podcast
for real, or we would have to break it up into multiple, and let's not do that.
And we're already doing multiple deep dives on this subject.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but so again, if you've been following, this is part 2 of the Conjuring deep dives. Next one will obviously be a month from now, and we will be doing Conjuring part 3, which is based off of the trial of Arnie Cheyenne Johnson. Again, this is another one where I know the actual story more than I know the movie. So yeah, Eric will be in charge of the movie. I will be in charge of researching the actual events that took place.
I mean, your fucking lights flickered, dude.
Dude, oh my god, I can't wait to edit that. I hope I don't look too much like trash, and I probably am.
Dude, you freaked out. I didn't even look at my face, but like you legit like. This might just be my head exaggerating it, dude, but I feel like you almost did like the thing in the movies where like they're sitting on something, and they literally like they see something in front of them, they freak out and they just go all the way back to the wall and they hit the wall. Like that's what because
like that's how bad it was.
Well, because it looked weird, man. Because like the lights start like flickering kind of weird, and then like it even looked like almost like if your computer screen had gone out. So I thought like the computer fell backwards or like it like crashed over, like it knocked over and like
god,
cracked
I can't
the
wait
screen.
to look at this.
It looked weird, dude. So I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then I see the lights coming back on, and then like just they flickered again, but they didn't flicker as bad as the first time. It almost looked like there was like interference or like say like lightning had struck and just like made everything go fucking wonky, dude. Because it was legit weird. And then like it kind of went black for a second, and then again like I just see Michelle up and back, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then like she starts freaking out and she opens the door. Like, watch the video, guys. Like, please just.
Oh my god, I swear to god it wasn't planned. And I might leave this in the podcast so you might hear it, but like we have been having like issues with the light, like it would sometimes flicker, so like that's not abnormal.
Mm-hmm.
But it's usually like when we're turning on the light, like it flickers, like when we turn on the light it'll be on, and then it's like click 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 click, and then it's on, and it's like whatever. But for it to like, it's been on this whole time that we've been recording, and then just randomly start to flicker. That hasn't, when we're talking about Poltergeist, like that hasn't happened. And that's because I'm really bad about leaving the closet light on. So I would know, I would see it. That was legit, like unplanned. And I reached up there and it felt a little loose, so I tightened it, and hopefully we don't have that issue. Maybe that was just the only issue, but the fact that it like happened when we're talking about Poltergeist and whatnot, it was just creepy as fuck. It was awful.
That's crazy.
That was awful. But
yeah, guys,
gonna make for good entertainment.
Yeah, that's for damn sure. But yeah, guys, if you want to find us, we have an amazing website that my sister made, and it's webelievedyou.com. You can click on you can find all our social medias on there. You can find everywhere you listen to a podcast, you can click on there to listen to all of them if you want to really help us out. And you can go to Apple Podcasts to give us a 5-star review. And if you want to share your stories, or if you want to be interviewed, you can go to the contact us, give us your name, or stay anonymous. Let us know that you want to be interviewed, or write in your stories, because we want to hear from you guys, because we believe.
Do you?